Imagine what would happen if there were no rules. Breaking of traffic laws.
I have to run again.
Unfair conduct. Disorderly behavior. Society needs rules to function effectively. However, as the social order is constantly evolving, these rules need to be regularly updated. The Constitution by which we are governed states that the Parliament may make laws for the peace, order and good governance of Trinidad and Tobago. A bill is a proposal for a new law or an amendment to an existing law which can be initiated in either house, except for certain financial measures, which must originate in the House of Representatives. These proposals are called money bills. Once a bill is passed in Parliament, it becomes an act or statutory law. A bill is basically a draft legislative proposal and can deal with anything affecting the lives of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago: healthcare, education, foodstuff, law and justice. Most bills introduced into Parliament are sponsored by the government, but members who are not ministers or parliamentary secretaries can also introduce bills. These are called private members' bills. Government bills may originate from a variety of sources. For example, there may be calls for a law to regulate the removal of materials from state lands from concerned citizens. In due course, these calls will be investigated and recommendations will be taken to the responsible minister for his consideration. Once the minister sees the need for legislative action, he takes the matter before the cabinet in the form of a policy proposal for its approval. Once the policy is approved by the cabinet, legal draftsmen from the Ministry of the Attorney General, called Parliamentary Council, begin the drafting of the legislation. Drafting is a detailed process. Parliamentary Council may need to examine the circumstances that prompted the need for the legislation, as well as the existing law on the particular subject. While the bill is being drafted, consultations with stakeholders are often held. Once drafted, Cabinet must approve the draft legislation before it is taken to the House of Representatives or the Senate. A bill is divided into the long title, which sets out the bill's purpose and gives a brief description of its scope. The preamble, which is not required for every bill, describes why the legislation would be desirable. Preambles are most often used in the case of bills seeking to amend the Constitution or to interfere with fundamental rights and freedoms. The enacting formula precedes the clauses of a bill and states the authority by which the act is made. The short title is the name by which the bill will be commonly known. The commencement provision, if included, specifies when the act is to come into effect. Otherwise, the act comes into effect on the date of assent by the President. Definitions are interpretation clauses which establish the meanings of certain terms in the bill. Clauses contain the provisions of the bill and may contain sub-clauses, paragraphs and sub-paragraphs. Once a bill becomes an act, the clauses are called sections. Parts. are the broad subject groupings of the bill and are divided into divisions and subdivisions. The schedule contains details that are appended to a bill. For a bill to become law, it must be passed by both the House of Representatives and the Senate and assented to by His Excellency the President. Each bill must go through certain steps in both houses before it becomes law. First reading. When the bill is presented to the House of Representatives or the Senate. The bill is also said to have been laid in the House of Representatives or the Senate. There can only be one introduction of a bill. For example, a bill that is introduced and read a first time in the House of Representatives will, upon being sent to the Senate, be only read a first time in the Senate. There can only be one introduction of a bill. After introduction and first reading, the bill must be published in the Trinidad and Tobago Gazette and circulated to members. Bills are made available to the public after this stage. Second reading. When the general principles and merits of the bill are discussed in detail and approved. Committee stage. This could be either Committee of the Whole, when the entire House or Senate meets as a committee to consider the specific clauses of the bill, or a Select Committee, when the House or Senate appoints a small group of members to consider the clauses of the bill. It is at this stage that amendments to the bill can be considered. Report stage. When the committee reports to the House or Senate. The minister responsible for the bill usually presents the report to the House or Senate, in which he will indicate whether amendments were made or not made to the bill. Third reading. When the title of the bill is given a final reading, signaling its passage in the House or Senate. These stages ensure that each bill is carefully considered before being passed. The process must take place in both houses, and the final bill must be approved in exactly the same form by each house. This means that the houses communicate with one another through their respective clerks in order to ensure concurrence not only on the bill, but also on amendments made to the bill. After passage in both houses, the bill is prepared for the assent of His Excellency the President. A bill sent to His Excellency for his assent must contain the certification of the Clerk of the House and the certification of the Clerk of the Senate, and be accompanied by the legal report of the Honorable Attorney General. At this stage, the new Act is formally entered into the laws of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Although the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago is the supreme law-making body, there are some aspects of lawmaking that are delegated by the Parliament to the Executive. In Trinidad and Tobago, such laws are referred to as subsidiary legislation and comprise mainly of rules, regulations, and orders. Essentially, subsidiary legislation deals with the details and implementation arrangements of the policies and principles articulated in substantive legislation. The Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago continues to shape the rules by which we are governed and to ensure, through the process of lawmaking, that the society continues to progress. It fulfills its constitutional mandate and promotes a peaceful and constantly developing society.